Some people think God created the universe. Some people think nothing created the universe, which is the funniest guess. And the nothing people make fun of the God people. They say God doesn't exist. I'm like, okay, maybe. But you know what definitely doesn't exist? Nothing. That's the defining characteristic of nothing, is that it doesn't exist. So what are we talking about? Either you think it's God, something you can't see, touch, taste, photograph, and science can't prove, or you think it's nothing, something you can't see, touch, taste, photograph, and science can't prove. But I think we can all agree, if your nothing sometimes spontaneously erupts into everything, that's a pretty goddamn magical fucking nothing, you guys. And ask the nothing people, what happens when you die? They'll tell you, nothing. You go into nothing. I'm like, you mean you merge back with your creator? That's heaven, bitch.
One of the things that always stood out to me about Pete Holmes is his premises. Over the years, Pete has developed a style where he's able to combine childlike silliness with existential spirituality and deeply personal revelations, creating stand-up that feels both playfully absurd and profoundly honest, often within the same joke. Pete has mentioned on his podcast that he read The Comedy Bible by Judy Carter. In it, Carter simply defines a premise as a topic plus an opinion. It's not enough to simply say something like airports, that's just a topic. To turn it into a premise, you need an emotional angle, a point of view that reveals how you feel about it. The book offers a useful exercise to help with this. Take any topic and pair it with one of the 4 adjectives hard, weird, scary, or stupid. So instead of just airports, you might say airports are weird because, or airports are hard because. That added opinion is the beginning of what could be an interesting premise. The beginning of maybe saying something that could potentially be slightly interesting. She also encourages comedians to mind their pain and shame and oddities. That idea resonates deeply with Pete, who often talks about stand-up as a place to tell your secrets and share what's uncomfortable or hidden.
Pete and I always talk about, if you're not telling secrets, then who cares? What's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point of this?
Another big factor in writing a premise is perspective. And Pete's perspective is loud and clear. He's a silly little goofy boy, but he's also a deeply curious, spiritual philosopher guy. He's a guy who can talk about boobs and the meaning of God with equal intensity. In Mastering Stand-Up, Stephen Rosenfield says, a strong premise reflects the comic's point of view. It's not just what if X, but what if X according to me. And that's exactly where Pete thrives. He filters everything through this unique lens. A childlike fascination with life, a post-Christian thirst for meaning, and a total willingness to look foolish or vulnerable.
There's another thing that I call him Joey Cams, did, which is find a way to look at religion and religious texts through the lens of the people that wrote them. And Joseph Campbell helped me realize that literal truth is the lowest level of truth. It's the lowest. The way that I love my wife, the literal way that I love her is like garbage. The metaphorical and mythical and emotional ways that I love her, that's where the juice is. But he does better than that. He says God itself, a man on a bearded cloud, all that, that's a metaphor for God, but he says God itself is a metaphor. And God is a metaphor for what? It's a mystery. So he's a thing pointing, he or she or it. This is a metaphor for the mystery that we're all in, regardless of your beliefs. I do not think someone is going to scan your brain when you die for the correct beliefs. Fuck that shit. I believe in aliens. You know what I mean? Like my belief, I give my belief away so willy-nilly. How could this precious, unbelievably vibrant, juicy, sexy game come down to what thoughts did you think repeatedly? I believed this and I didn't believe that. Scan, okay, you go to heaven and these Hindus go to hell? We lost it.
Guy telling his Latino friend that their soccer team finally broke their losing streak. Juan! We won, Juan! We won! We finally won! Where were you when we won? We finally won! One is what we won, one is what we won. It was 1-1 for the longest time, Juan, then we won. Penalty kicks.
A lot of Pete's comedy comes from interrogating assumptions, taking something he used to accept and going, wait, does this make sense at all? As a formerly evangelical Christian, he grew up with a worldview that had rules and answers and certainty. But when his faith fell apart, he started to question everything. And that spirit of inquiry runs through his stand-up today. So when you're trying to write your next joke, a good question you could ask yourself would be, how could I explain blank to an alien? Don't just say lotion, say white sticky stuff. Talk in alien speak. Then think about the same question from the alien's point of view, looking down on what's happening. Zoom out, examine the world, find out what you think about it.
Explain sleep to an alien that doesn't sleep. I couldn't do it. I could explain food. I could be like, I need energy, so I eat an apple so I can use the energy that's in the apple. They'd be like, okay. Anything else? Yeah. At night? Regardless of how much energy I've consumed, I just have to shut it down. I shut it down for like 8, 9, sometimes 12 hours. Sounds boring. I'm like, no, my brain plays movies that I'm in. Sometimes they're scary.
Something that makes Pete's premises stand out is the research that's gone into them. Because Pete is so obsessed with meaning and spiritual philosophy, a lot of his premises end up being essentially repackaged ideas from gurus like Ram Dass. This next bit is a great example of how Pete can take something that he's actually curious about, even if on paper it sounds super serious and not very funny, and just by running it through his persona, he can take this Ram Dass on a mushroom trip style premise and just make it super childlike and playful in a really hilarious way.
Nothing makes fucking sense. Life makes no sense. You're on a planet right now. You think you're in America? Zoom out. You're on a space rock floating in nothingness, infinite nothingness, and the infinite nothingness is expanding. That means endlessness is getting bigger. That makes no fucking sense. We all just act like it's normal. Like, oh, everything's made of molecules. Okay. Got it. I'll never think about that again. I'm made of molecules, you're made of molecules, the air between us, it's all made of molecules. That makes no fucking sense. These molecules know they're molecules. These molecules are like, oh, I'm Pete. That doesn't make any sense. This stool is made of molecules, the same molecules in my hand. In fact, some of the molecules in this stool went into me while I've been talking, and some that were me have gone into this stool. And you know, when I knock these molecules into these molecules, when we ask science, why don't they go through each other? You know what the answer is? We don't know. That doesn't make any fucking sense!
I guess that's kind of the whole point of this video. I think a good premise is just an interesting thought and an interesting perspective with a clear opinion attached. And to have interesting thoughts and clear opinions, all you have to do is to be curious about life and your interests, and to start reading some books on philosophy and just take a shitload of mushrooms.
I will say that there are some things in the Bible that I hope aren't literally true. I hope some parts are myths. I think you know the parts I'm talking about. Abraham and Isaac, Genesis 22. I think you know the story. God tells Abraham to kill his son. Abraham, look it up, goes, okay. So he wakes up Isaac. Where are we going? Who cares? Doesn't matter. 2 men are gonna go in, 1 comes back. Daddy doesn't need to tell you the details, honey. This is the end. Wakes up Isaac, takes him to a mountain so God can see. It's like a voyeur, like a snuff film. God wants to see Abraham do it, and then he's gonna kill him, and then he doesn't. I hope that is not literally true. If that's just a story that they tell us so that we know, oh, you're supposed to give up everything for God no matter what, no matter how attached you are to it, that's beautiful. Otherwise, that's just a story about an old man who hears voices that tell him to kill his son. And he was gonna do it. He was going to do it. He had the knife up in the air and he heard another voice, thank God. What would he have done if he hadn't heard the voice? It just would have been...